Welcome in, everybody, to another deep dive. You sent in some really interesting stuff about the disappearance of Emma Granger. It's like we're stepping into one of those true crime documentaries.
It's definitely a case that's got everyone scratching their heads. Emma was a college student, just 21 years old, full of life. And then, poof, she's gone March 18th, 2023.
Yeah, you mentioned the date, and that stood out to me in the research because her last night out was the 18th, right? She was with friends at a bar called the Blue Lantern.
That's right. And that's where things get a little strange. One of her friends said that Emma just seemed off that night.
Off? Like how?
Not her usual self. Emma was known for being bubbly and energetic, but this friend said she was quiet, withdrawn, almost like something was weighing on her.
That's so interesting. You've got to wonder if that means something, right? Like, was she nervous? Was she meeting someone?
Well, there's another piece to this puzzle that might be connected. There was a man at the bar that night. Nobody recognized him. Tall guy, dark jacket, kind of intense looking, apparently.
Okay, so if none of her friends knew him, what was he doing there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Witnesses said he seemed fixated on Emma, like he was watching her. And at one point, he leaned in and whispered something to her.
Did anyone hear what he said?
No, unfortunately. But whatever it was, it made Emma's face fall, like she'd just heard bad news or something.
This is getting creepy. And then what happened?
Well, a little way later, Emma left the bar. And get this, a few minutes after that, the mystery man followed her out.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So he follows her out, but nobody sees what happens next.
Right. It wasn't until about 11 p.m. that Emma's friends realized she was missing. At first, they thought maybe she just stepped outside for some air.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's a bar, people come and go.
Yeah.
But then as time passed.
Exactly. The worry started to set in.
I bet. So at this point, her friends are thinking something's wrong. They contact the police. And what happens then?
Well, in these early stages of a missing person case, things are always a bit chaotic. Lots of theories, rumors, possible sightings, but nothing concrete. You know how it goes.
Oh, absolutely. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
But surely there had to be something, some kind of lid, right?
There was. One big development came when Emma's phone was tracked to a remote area in the woods. It was found the day after she disappeared.
The woods. That's unsettling. Was it a place she was known to go hiking trails, anything like that?
Not that anyone knows of. There wasn't a park or a common hiking spot, just a pretty isolated area.
Okay, so if she wasn't familiar with the area, what was her phone doing there?
We don't know for sure, but we do know this. Her last text message, sent just minutes before she disappeared, simply said, "I have to go."
I have to go. That's it. No explanation, no context.
Exactly. Chilling, right?
Totally. And it just raises so many more questions. Who was she texting? Why did she have to go? Where was she going?
And to add another layer to this puzzle, when investigators looked into her phone records and social media, it didn't really clear anything up. In fact, it just seemed to create more questions than answers.
So we've got a missing 21-year-old, a mysterious man at the bar, a cryptic last text, and a phone found in the middle of nowhere. It's like something straight out of a thriller movie.
It really is. And the thing is, we've only just scratched the surface of this case. There's so much more to uncover.
I keep thinking about that spot where they found Emma's phone. You said it was isolated, in the woods. What do we know about it?
Well, it wasn't like a hiking trail or a park, just kind of a dense wooded area, pretty far off the beaten path.
Yeah, I get that. But was it like a place somebody local might know about? Did any of her friends or family recognize it?
Nobody seemed to. Weird, right? Investigators even went through all her social media, trying to see if she ever mentioned being interested in that area, hiking photos, anything. Like maybe it was a place she liked to go to think or something.
Makes sense, but they didn't find anything. So that leaves us with the big question. If she didn't know the area, how did she end up there?
Right, and then it becomes, was she forced? Did somebody take her there? Or did she go willingly, maybe, to meet someone?
Right. I mean, given everything else we know, it's hard to imagine her choosing to go to a place like that late at night, especially if she was already acting strange earlier in the evening.
Exactly, and that's why that mysterious man at the bar keeps coming back into the picture. Could he have lured her out there?
It seems possible, doesn't it? I mean, he was watching her, he followed her out of the bar. It's all very suspicious.
For sure. But we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions. We don't have any actual proof that he was involved in her disappearance.
Of course.
Yeah.
But let's just say for a minute that he was involved.
Yeah.
What kind of motive could he have had?
Well, without knowing more about him, it's hard to speculate. But there are a few possibilities, right? For example, could this be a case of catfishing? Maybe they met online, he pretended to be someone he wasn't.
That's scary.
Hmm.
But it happens.
Yeah,
It's definitely something investigators would need to look into.
definitely. Another thought, and this is a bit more out there, but maybe there was someone from Emma's past, someone she had a bad experience with who somehow found her again.
Okay. So it's possible that this guy wasn't a total stranger after all.
Hmm.
Maybe he was someone who had been in her life before, someone who maybe she'd tried to forget about.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up another really important piece of the puzzle. Emma's state of mind. Was she stressed? Was something bothering her?
Had she changed her behavior at all leading up to that night?
Well, that's what investigators have been trying to figure out. They've been talking to her friends, her family, anyone who knew her well. They're looking for any signs that something might have been off.
And what are they saying?
Everyone describes her as a happy person, well-adjusted. But people don't always show everything that's going on, right? It's possible she was dealing with something she kept hidden.
Absolutely. You never really know what's going on in someone else's head. So even though her friends and family say she seemed fine, there's a chance she was struggling with something she didn't want to talk about.
Right, and that's why it's so important to keep an open mind in this case. We can't rule anything out.
So let's imagine for a second that we do get more information about the mysterious man, and we learn more about Emma's state of mind before she vanished. What happens then? How do investigators start putting all of the pieces together?
Well, it's kind of like building a puzzle, right? You start by looking for any connections between the pieces. You look for patterns, for anything that stands out.
So it's a lot of analyzing and comparing and trying to find those links.
Exactly. And sometimes the smallest detail can end up being the key to the whole thing.
It's like in those old detective movies, right? Where they find a tiny clue and suddenly everything makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And in a case like this, where we have so many unknowns, every little detail could be important.
So with all these challenges, the lack of evidence, the unknown motives, the different possibilities, how do investigators even begin to prioritize? Where do they focus their energy?
It's tough. But they often start with the most concrete evidence, like that location where they found Emma's phone. They'll go over that area with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any trace of her or anyone else.
Trying to find any little piece of the story that might be hidden there.
Exactly. And at the same time, they'll be running background checks, analyzing data, interviewing anyone who might have had contact with Emma.
It's a huge job involving all kinds of different experts and agencies.
It is. It's a reminder that even with cases like this, where there are so many obstacles, people don't give up. They keep searching for answers.
It's amazing, really, the dedication of those investigators, the commitment to finding the truth. It's inspiring.
It is. And as we dig deeper into this case, it's important to keep asking the tough questions, like, what exactly happened in those final moments before Emma disappeared? Are there any inconsistencies in the stories people are telling? And what can we really learn from all that digital evidence?
Yeah, those are all important things to consider. And we have to be prepared for the fact that the answers might not be what we expect.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. And in a case like this, we need to be open to all possibilities.
This case is really a reminder that we're dealing with real people, real lives, and sometimes the answers are hard to find. It's crazy how often we see these missing person cases on TV, like it's all wrapped up in an hour. But in real life, it's obviously way more complicated.
Oh, definitely. In real life, there's no guarantee of a happy ending, Sometimes the answers just never come.
And I can't imagine what that's like for Emma's family and friends. The not knowing, the waiting, it must be torture.
It is. And that's why it's so important to have support, There are organizations out there that help families of missing persons. They offer resources, advice. It can be a lifeline.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
At least they don't have to go through this alone.
Exactly. And, while the search for Emma goes on, it's important for all of us to remember that even small things can help.
Like what?
Sharing her story, being aware of our surroundings. You never know. Somebody out there might have a piece of information that could break the case wide open.
It's true. You just never know. So we've gone through a lot of information, and I got to say, I'm still left with a lot of questions. It's like every answer just leads to more questions.
That's how it goes with these investigations. It's all about putting the pieces together bit by bit. And sometimes you hit a wall. But then something new might come up. A new piece of evidence, a new witness, and suddenly the case takes a whole new turn.
Speaking of new developments, what about technology? Has that been helpful in the search for Emma?
Absolutely. Forensics has come a long way. They can analyze DNA, use facial recognition software, and the digital stuff, that's a whole other world now. They can track online activity, cell phone records, all kinds of things.
So even though Emma's disappearance happened in the real world, investigators are also looking for clues in the digital world.
Exactly. It's like having another crime scene to investigate. And as technology keeps getting better, who knows what they'll be able to do in the future?
It makes you wonder what the future holds for cases like this. Maybe one day technology will be so advanced that disappearances like Emma's will be solved quickly and easily.
We can hope, right? But even with all the technology in the world, there's still the human element. And sometimes that's the hardest part to figure out.
You're right.
Hmm.
This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's made me realize just how complex these cases are and how much work goes into trying to find someone who's gone missing.
It's definitely not like what you see on TV. It's real life with real consequences. And for Emma's loved ones, it's a nightmare they're living every single day.
Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to break all this down for us. You've given us a lot to think about.
My pleasure. And to everyone listening, if you've been following this case, don't give up hope. Keep sharing Emma's story. Keep those eyes peeled. You never know what might help.
That's right. Even the smallest detail could be the missing piece of the puzzle. So stay vigilant, stay informed, and let's hope that someday we'll get answers about what happened to Emma Granger.